The fun part about running a business includes the expenses that you can write off. But what happens when you operate at a loss? 2023 was the first year in a very long time, as long as I can remember, that I had to file my taxes at a loss instead of a profit. So let's break down what that looks like. But first, if you're new here, hi, my name is Lauren Simpson, and I'm helping you maximize your time and talents as a growing small business owner. So make sure to subscribe for new videos. If you missed it recently, I did do a video all about my 2023 revenue and what that broke down to, so make sure to check that out as well. But let's get into this. So my total gross revenue for the year came to $176,072.95. My total expenses for the year came to $190,561.45. So as you can see, we were about $14,000 at a loss. Now this does include payroll as well, which is really important to note because I do pay myself on a regular basis. I pay myself bi-weekly, which is really nice. I know not every business owner can or does that, but this is my full-time business that supports my family. So although it was at like a loss, it still provided that consistent income that I need. Additionally, I do have quite a good emergency fund built up, so whenever I need to kind of push a little bit of that towards my checking account when it is the slower season, that's where that comes in handy. That's why operating as a loss every once in a while is not a make or break thing for me. So first expense we have is cost of goods. This was $1,784.71 or 1.01% of expenses. Now this is obviously makeup, lash supplies, wax supplies, all of the things that I need to function, to work the job, to be able to perform the job. Yeah, do what I need to do on clients. So it is a very important category, and surprisingly, every year it's just not as much as I think it would be. It feels like I spend so much more on cost of goods than I actually do, which I find really fascinating. Next category is the office expense. So this was $4,798.08 or 2.73%. So this consists of things like my Gmail address, Amazon orders, because those are usually like office-y things. So it could be like tape. It could be a new little like graphic I put on the wall at the studio or something like that. At Best Buy, I had bought new hard drives because my external hard drives broke. It is my online backup for my hard drive subscription. It's the cost of my CRM. We have the cost of QuickBooks Online, which is the bookkeeping software that I use for my accountant. It's something called Team Up Calendar, which is the calendar I use to get my team's availability for different weddings. Things like that. When I mail stuff out, these are all like office-y expenses. Next, we have legal and professional fees. So this was $6,925 and 3.93%. So this includes my accountant fees, if I ever work with an attorney that year for updating contracts or things like that. This includes my business financial coach. So all of that is kind of included in this lump sum. Next, we have insurance and rent. So this was $12,500 or 7.10%. So my rent is what I pay every single month for my studio space. And then my liability insurance is also paid monthly, which is very important. It's for my space as well as me on location and my kit. Next, we have utilities. That was $2,509.96 or 1.43%. This includes things like electric, phone, and internet at the studio. Next, we have travel and meals. So this includes when I go get a meal out, whether I'm networking or like last year, I traveled to a Vermont wedding, so I had to write off the food that we got for those few meals when we were away. It also includes things like parking. So sometimes I have to pay parking meters when I work weddings because they're at a hotel in like a busy city or something. So this came to $413.77 or 0.23%. Next, we have advertising and marketing. So this is $2,691.99 or 1.53%. So this includes every kind of method of advertising that you can think of. So this could be my email list. This is Facebook ads, Google ads. We have my domain name that I pay for. I also pay for a listing on the Knot. This also includes a Tailwind subscription, which is a platform to get pins out on a regular basis on Pinterest. So anything that has to do with advertising and getting my business out there. Next category we have is taxes and licenses. So this one is $39,356.31, or 22.35% of my expenses. So this includes, I have estimated state taxes, I have payroll taxes, the Secretary of the State every year for the LLC. It also included some IRS payments last year. There was a whole mix-up from 2022 to 2023 that I had to deal with the IRS. It was the biggest pain in the butt. Don't recommend having a mix-up with the IRS because it is just not easy to fix, but it did include having like payment plans and paying off like a certain amount and stuff like that, so I had to put that there, as well as sales and use tax. So I do have some services and products that I sell that are sales taxable, so I take the sales tax from the customer and then I pay it to the state. Next, and this is my biggest expense, is my team. So this was $79,703.98, or 45.27%. So this is the total that I paid all of my team members throughout the year to work weddings, to work trials, to work special events. I'm pretty sure this number is actually up from last year too. I'm gonna double check really quick because I was pregnant for the majority of the year and the busy wedding season, and I had a feeling that that was going to happen. That's what I was hoping for and planning for because I wanted to have a baby during the off season. So what I did was I automatically assigned more weddings to my team than myself than I had ever done before. In the off chance that I had a complicated pregnancy, I was too sick, things like that. I didn't want to be on the line for too many weddings and then have to cancel them last minute or something. So, yes, in 2022, I paid $57,716.50, or 34.26% at that time towards my team. So it did go up significantly, and we booked about the same amount of weddings, to give you an idea. So it's not like our bookings went way up. But that expense went up a good 10%. And now that is something that on the flip side for 2024, I'm going to see that drop because now, once again, I have flipped and I am personally taking on a lot more weddings than I did last year, this year, to kind of make up for it and to kind of just give me a little bit of financial boost because especially now with the baby, we could really use it. So whenever I work a wedding, I personally make more. The business makes more. The business makes the same amount, but I personally can profit more if I work the wedding myself rather than pay another team member. So it's going to be really interesting to see how that flip-flops for 2024. But honestly, it's one of those necessary expenses because if I didn't have the team, there's no way I would be making as much as I do now doing weddings just by myself. So we have a debt category, which is essentially the EIDL loan. So I did get an EIDL loan back in 2020. That's fun to see how the interest accrues every single day, and it's annoying. It's a daily accrual interest rather than monthly, so it's actually worse than a 30-year mortgage, even though it's 30 years that you have the loan to pay off. I'm paying so much interest. I hate it so much. And then for some reason, my payroll is in this category. I'm not quite sure why it's under debt, but my payroll fees, so the fee to actually get the payroll done, and then what my payroll is included in this category. And that all came to $39,877.65, or 22.65%. Now, My payroll would have been significantly more if I paid myself that whole last quarter. However, I did not pay myself the whole last quarter because instead I got paid through the state for our paternal leave. I had 12 weeks of paid paternal leave because I do pay into it through my payroll. So I chose to just stop paying myself and save whatever I could through my business since I knew I wasn't going to be working for months. So that's basically the ins and outs of how I operated at a loss. To be honest, it's majorly because I had to pay the team so much more. I think that's really what made a lot of the difference, because if we're comparing $79,000 to $57,000, that's a $22,000 difference from 2022 to 2023 and how much I paid my team. That is so significant. So that's definitely where I'm going to be making up for it this year, by working more weddings myself, as well as we do have a bit of a shift happening in the team. We have some people who are either no longer working weddings or working significantly less weddings than they did last year. And then we have some new people coming on. So all of this shift also means that how much people are paid is kind of changing, which will also help the business and profitability and things like that. So again, the really cool thing is I'm not at all concerned that I operated at a loss. The thing is, to the IRS, you can do this every once in a while and it's no big deal. The bigger issue would be is if I operate at a loss year after year after year, then they start to look at you and say, is this a hobby or is this a business? And especially because I am an S Corp LLC, I have to just be really careful to continue to actually profit some. The cool thing is I actually ended up getting a little bit of a tax refund to the business rather than having to pay taxes, which I'm so used to doing, because again, my profit usually means I owe something. Instead, I got a little something back. So not only did that happen, but I also was able to pay myself consistently throughout the year until my maternity leave, like I always want to. That is my main priority, is making sure that I always have enough in a separate bank account to pay my team when the weddings come up and when their paychecks are due, and to prioritize that I always have enough to pay my consistent biweekly payroll every single time and without hesitation, because that is the biggest thing as a small business owner that is really difficult to do until you get to a certain point in your business. It took me years to get to the point where I am so consistent with my payroll and where I am paying myself as much as I am currently. So I hope you enjoyed that realistic look at my business expenses for 2023. If you're curious how it compares to 2022, make sure to check that video out next. Otherwise, I'll see you in my next video.